Sonoma Land Trust is a local nonprofit that protects land in Sonoma County for everyone's benefit. We've been doing this work since 1976, and we've protected about 60,000 acres in our county so far. We accomplish our work through the generosity of our members and contributors, so thank you all who are out there for helping us protect beautiful Sonoma County for future generations. As we do this important work of land conservation in Sonoma County, I want to recognize that we stand on the unceded ancestral lands of many Indigenous peoples and communities. We honor their knowledge and care and stewardship of the special place across the ages and acknowledge the deep and lasting damage that colonization has inflicted upon them. Sonoma Land Trust embraces our responsibility to learn and to protect their cultural and traditional connections to the land. And with that, I'd like to transition to our speaker for tonight. As Legislative Policy and Community Engagement Manager, Miles Horton represents Sonoma Clean Power in the state capitol and leverages the organization's unique position on the cutting edge of energy transition to help inform policy discussions around clean energy, infrastructure build-out, electric rates, and more. He also leads community engagement efforts at Sonoma Clean Power's GeoZone initiative, working to build support for local, reliable, clean energy. Prior to joining Sonoma Clean Power, Miles spent 7 years in the California legislature as an aide to State Senator Scott Wiener and Assembly Speaker Robert Rivas, having previously worked as a legislative assistant on the Sierra Club's Beyond Coal campaign. He's a graduate of Williams College, where he majored in political economy. Miles, we're so happy to have you here tonight, and thank you for helping us wrap our heads around this topic of geothermal energy and expanding clean energy throughout Sonoma County and some of our neighbors. I'd like to transition it over to you. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks so much, Neil. Just really excited to be here, and thanks to everyone for taking the time this evening to join us. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and just get some slides teed up for everyone to see. Let me know if for some reason people can't see that, but it should be showing the slideshow now.
Perfect.
Great. Really excited to talk about Sonoma Clean Power's GeoZone initiative. This is actually a big part of the reason I wanted to come work at Sonoma Clean Power in the first place, because this is such a phenomenal opportunity for our region. So let's get into it. So briefly, the Geothermal Opportunity Zone, or GeoZone, is our effort to build about 600 megawatts of new next generation geothermal power here in our service territory in Sonoma and Mendocino counties. And if we can get this done, it'll have a lot of advantages for our community. We'll be able to lock in, affordable, reliable, clean power over the long term, so that we're not as subject to the kind of whims of the global energy market. We'll create a lot of, highly skilled, well-paid union jobs in the process and generate economic activity locally, reinvest in our community. And then, our mission as a public agency, which I'll get into, is to help fight the global climate crisis, right? So through the GeoZone effort, we'll help incubate kind of this next generation of clean energy technologies that can be a really big part of getting us to 100% clean energy worldwide. So it's something we're really excited about. In the 10 years that we've been serving customers, this is probably our most significant effort to date. So, one of the biggest economic initiatives in our region's history, actually. So, let's dive on in. Just a quick refresher on Sonoma Clean Power. So we are your community-owned local power provider serving Sonoma and Mendocino counties for 10 years now. There's, the way I would think about it is there's two components of getting electricity to you, the customer. The first part is somebody has to go out and actually procure that electricity from different sources and figure out, the right amount at the right time and, with the right attributes, right? So that's what we do. We go out and, buy electricity from, Joe's power plant or Sally's wind farm, whatever, get the right amount of electricity onto the system. And then PG&E ships it over their wires. So we don't control any of the wires. That's all PG&E. And you can also choose to get your, the procurement of the electricity from PG&E if you'd like. Sonoma Clean Power, I think our basic value proposition and why we exist is threefold. One is cleaner energy, right? We were formed 10 years ago to provide the community with cleaner energy, greener energy that's better for the climate than what the default product was from PG&E at the time. there's also affordability. We currently have rates that are very competitive, actually just marginally lower than what you would get with PG&E. It's a bit, electric bills are going up. This is a big priority for us. And then, there's local control. So, we have, local control, we're publicly owned. We have local control over our system here, and we're able to, again, focus on climate and affordability and customer programs that people may want, and sort of different rebates for people and different things that we're using to help people in the community. So that's kind of our value proposition. And that's really, what the GeoZone is all about, is helping our community take control of its own energy future. So, one thing we're really proud of at Sonoma Clean Power is that we're leading the way on clean energy. California's electric grid today is about 55% renewable and carbon-free electricity. Sonoma Clean Power is about 90% clean. So we're really, we're ahead of the curve. We're on the cutting edge. And I think most people on this webinar probably know this, but when I say like clean energy, whatever, quote unquote dirty energy like coal, oil, natural gas, by burning fossil fuels to produce electricity, it releases greenhouse gases into the atmosphere that cause climate change and all the associated, fires, floods, droughts, all these heat waves, horrible impacts that we see. Clean energy like solar power, wind power, geothermal power does not release greenhouse gases and does not make climate change worse. So, by some metric, we're doing pretty well, right? 90% of the electricity that we serve to our customers was produced using clean sources, which is great, but we're still not doing well enough. There are times when the sun isn't shining, the wind isn't, so there's no solar power, the wind isn't blowing, so there's no wind power. And, our batteries, our energy storage is depleted. And that's when we're still relying on natural gas plants, burning natural gas, a fossil fuel, to keep the lights on here in Sonoma and Mendocino counties. And, you can see in the picture here is a picture of a natural gas plant down in LA, like the ones we're using. This has a few negative effects. First of all, every time we burn fossil fuels, our clean power company is making the climate crisis worse. And we know it's already, having severe impacts right here at home, right? Between fires and heat waves and a lot more, as well as around the world. Most of the natural gas plants we rely on are located in the LA area, where they're typically sited in disadvantaged communities that really struggle with poor air quality. There's over 200,000 children just in Southern California with asthma. That's more than the population of Santa Rosa. And actually, the American Lung Association just gave LA an F grade for its air quality. So it's really harming those local communities. And then production of that natural gas involves practices like fracking that, pollute water sources where the natural gas is sourced, causing, all sorts of horrible health effects potentially. Again, typically in kind of lower income disadvantaged areas in a really unfair way. So, while our communities here in Sonoma and Mendocino don't necessarily have to deal with a lot of these effects, just to keep the lights on, they're happening, right? And there is a really significant effect to our customers from our reliance on natural gas, and that's the financial impact. So these gas plants that we're relying on, they are aging. They're really, most of them are past their sort of shelf life. The state has a goal of 100% clean energy by 2045. So nobody is going to build a new gas plant, but we keep extending the lifespans of these existing gas plants because we need them to keep, not just us, every power provider in the state needs them to keep the lights on. And that's really expensive. And actually, as the percentage of clean energy in our portfolio has grown over time, our payments to these natural gas plants have also grown, even as we're using them less and less. So it's a real challenge. Like I mentioned, we need those gas plants to keep the lights on at times when there's no sun, there's no wind, and batteries are depleted. Here's, town winds are in the middle of the night, or at dusk, I guess. Getting new clean energy online has become relatively straightforward. There's always challenges, but we have a lot of solar and wind and batteries, right? I think we're able to do that, and we strongly support those technologies. But what we're finding is getting that clean reliability that can be there around the clock. That's really hard. That's our big challenge. And as the demand for electricity starts to grow again for the first time in 20 years between, new electric vehicles, artificial intelligence, all electric buildings, actually a lot of stuff we support, that challenge is only going to get, more acute, right? So how do we kind of solve this all at once? How do we save our customers money, keep that money, here in the local community instead of sending it down to LA, and then also cut ties to these really kind of toxic natural gas plants? Well, the good news is there's a lot of different solutions, and we're pursuing many of them, ranging from energy efficiency to actually paying customers to save energy at key times through our Grid Savvy program, which I can speak to more in the Q&A if people are interested, to much more, right? We're doing a lot. But the biggest component of our vision here is the GeoZone initiative, which we're here to discuss. Our goal was to build affordable, reliable, clean energy that creates well-paying jobs in the process and keeps economic benefits here in our local community in Sonoma and Mendocino counties. That was really kind of the framework or insight that led our analysts to identify next generation geothermal power as the right solution for us. Just briefly, before we get into that, what is geothermal power? It's a form of clean energy that uses heat under the Earth's surface to warm up water to produce electricity. So basically, the way it works is, that deep under the Earth, near the Earth's core, it's very hot, right? There's a lot of heat, a constantly regenerating source of heat, and that melts the rock under the Earth, creating magma, right? And then as it gets closer to the surface, that magma touches on, solid rock that's not quite as hot, but the magma is warming the rock directly above it to really, really high temperatures. And then as you get closer to the surface, it kind of cools down until it's the temperature is at the surface, which is not typically, not hot enough to burn us. So there are a lot of places where that really hot rock, solid rock, comes close to the Earth's surface. And geothermal power basically works by, sending water down in a pipe, passing it through that really hot rock, which heats up the water. And then the water comes back up as steam or really hot water. And that basically powers a steam engine that spins a turbine that generates electricity. And then, traditionally for geothermal power, you kind of needed three things. You needed, that hot rock close to the surface. You needed, fractures in that rock so that water can move through it, or natural kind of reservoirs. And then you needed lots of water, right? Because oftentimes that steam would sort of dissipate off once it came back to the surface. What's exciting is just in the last couple of years, actually, you have a new generation of geothermal technologies that have emerged that really only need that first component, which is hot rock close to the surface. And, I think it's relatively rare to find those three conditions. It's pretty common to find hot rock close to the surface. And so these technologies could be used really in a lot of different places in the world, including Sonoma and Mendocino counties. And part of the reason we're excited about being kind of the tip of the spear with some of these new technologies is for that reason. If we can incubate them here, this could be part of the global solution to the climate crisis. California is really, in many ways, the Saudi Arabia of geothermal energy. 50 years ago, we kicked off the geothermal revolution with, the Geysers field up in Northeast Sonoma County and Lake County. That is still the single biggest source of clean energy in the state today. And I think we're strongly positioned to lead the way again with these new technologies. That leads us to the GeoZone initiative, which we're here to talk about. Our goal, again, is to secure 600 megawatts of new next generation geothermal power here in our service territory over the years to come. Like I said, it's made possible by the emergence of these new technologies. And if successful, we'll have 100% clean energy around the clock, at all times of day, all times of year, in likely the most affordable way possible. Just to share some exciting news on that front, actually, just in the last couple of months, the U.S. Department of Energy published a report highlighting research that found that, aggressive deployment of these new next generation geothermal technologies could cut the cost of eliminating carbon emissions from the Western electric grid by as much as 25% compared to what they had thought before these technologies emerged. This geothermal power, it's also really reliable, right? It, because most of the infrastructure is underground, it can keep operating in a lot of cases, even during natural disasters like heat waves or fires. And because it's local, it won't be as vulnerable to disruptions in the transmission system. And then again, like we mentioned, unlike solar or wind power, which Sonoma Clean Power strongly supports and buys a lot of, it can run 24/7, 365. It basically provides all those attributes I was saying we get from natural gas, but without the pollution and without the kind of relentless cost increases. You might ask, you can see here on the map the geysers field, as well as the kind of early interest area where we think the hottest rock comes closest to the surface. You might ask, why don't we just buy more power from the geysers? Well, we do actually buy a lot of power from the geysers today, but it's all pretty much bought up and accounted for. If we want more geothermal, we have to go and build it ourselves, basically. So we launched the GeoZone initiative to essentially roll out the welcome mat for next generation geothermal developers to come build in Sonoma and Mendocino counties. The basic compact, and we're working with 3 companies, which I'll get into. The basic compact is if they come and build new, next generation geothermal technology here in coordination with us, we will buy the power or find another off-taker, and we will help them with some of the local community engagement, government engagement, navigating the local dynamics. And then in return, they will offer us first dibs on any deals that they bring to the market. So we're guaranteed to have the cheapest power they can produce. And they'll invest here in the local community. They won't build it somewhere far off and then ship it here, right? So we'll get that benefit and kind of investment here. It was really a big priority for us was making sure that the benefits flow first and foremost to the local community. That's something we've seen up in Humboldt. They're trying to build offshore wind. It's been a big challenge, and there's been some local opposition because I think there's a concern about local impacts in Humboldt so that people in Southern California can have electricity, right? So the nice thing is, again, we're locally owned by the people of Sonoma and Mendocino. We can focus all benefits on the local community from the get-go. And last thing I'll say on that is just, we're not dogmatic. If something else comes along that can meet our needs, we'll explore that too. But right now, we think next generation geothermal is our best bet to kind of affordably get to 100% clean energy, which is, again, our goal and the state's goal as well. So we're working with 3 different companies to make this vision a reality. These are our 3 partners. All 3, bring different advantages to the table. And, these are emerging technologies, right? We didn't want to put all our eggs in one basket. We need to diversify our bets to ensure success. Ever is a really exciting new company using what's called advanced closed loop geothermal. This is basically, they send water down to earth in a pipe, and then that pipe just, they drill it through solid rock horizontally where it gets exposed to a lot of heat, and then the water comes back up in that same pipe, as steam or really hot water. They extract the heat to produce electricity and then just send it down over and over again. And at the bottom, the pipe kind of radiates out into a series of pipes that, link back up. So, obviously this pipe is being drilled through solid rock, barring any leaks. It doesn't need a regular supply of water. That was a big focus for us because we're not sure we're going to find some major new water supply in this day and age, right? So, you can just keep using that same water over and over again. It's an entirely self-contained system. We're also working with Chevron New Energies. This is the renewable energy division of Chevron. They are you're going to use a technique called enhanced geothermal systems, or EGS. And this is probably the one that's shown the most promise just nationally so far. This, kind of like advanced closed loop, you find that field of solid hot rock close to the surface. But then instead of keeping the water in a pipe the whole time, you send it down in a steel-lined pipe. And then you artificially create those fractures in the rock like you would find in a natural geothermal field. You kind of artificially create that fracturing that water can pass through, and then you draw it back up in another pipe on the back end. And so again, because it's surrounded by that solid rock largely, you really shouldn't have too much water leaking off into the outside environment. You should be able to recover most of the water and just recirculate over and over again. Again, like I said, it's shown a lot of promise. The U.S. Department of Energy just actually started negotiations with Chevron for a grant of about $15 to $20 million for their project here in Sonoma County. That grant also comes with different requirements to adhere to the kind of highest possible standards, in terms of safety and others. So we think that's really promising, and we're excited about that. And then last but not least, Circ Energy is a geothermal company that is proposing to actually build an energy storage system to pair with an existing unit up at the geysers. And so it's a pretty cool concept. The idea is that during the day, when there's lots of solar power on the system, but the demand for power is lower because people are, at work instead of at home, running their appliances, they'll use that solar power to, electrically heat up some sort of like a silo filled with some sort of thermal medium like sand or cement. And then in the evening, as the sun's going down, but that silo is really hot, they'll pack the steam from that existing geothermal unit through the silo, superheat it, and then you can really like turbocharge the output of that existing unit right when we need it in the evening as everyone's going home and turn on their lights and dishwashers and laundry and all that. So really exciting, shifting the power to when we need it. As with anything else, there's pros and cons to these technologies. I won't get into everything on the slide, but one thing we really like about next generation geothermal power is that it pairs really well with solar power, which we already, like I said, have in abundance. Solar power is obviously most productive during the summer when it's really sunny and the days are long, right? Geothermal power is actually most productive in the winter when there's a higher differential between the kind of the hot water steam and the cold air. It pulls the steam through the turbine with more force. It also, I think one big advantage of doing, local power, doing geothermal, is it uses a lot less land than solar and wind power. The footprint on the surface is not huge. You have maybe a few big buildings and some drilling equipment, but, to produce the same amount of wind or solar power, you would need a vast expanse of landscape. Securing more local power can also help keep us safe from different kind of supply chain issues, blackouts, disruptions to the grid. But, there are some downsides, right? So, I think one big one is that these technologies need a high initial investment to get up and running. And that'll be, that'll be invested by the companies, but it'll be reflected in the price they sell power at to our customers once the products are built, right? So we're working really closely with our 3 companies to pursue any and all funding opportunities through the Inflation Reduction Act or other programs like the Chevron grant I mentioned, so that we can keep that initial cost low. And then, they lock in the more affordable kind of longer term contracts once it's up and running. I'll also mention with enhanced geothermal systems specifically, that was the Chevron technology. There is the potential to cause earthquakes during the operation of the facility. It's sort of, what happens is if the water intercepts a natural fracture, that can be kind of lubricated by the water and cause, slipping. This risk already exists with conventional geothermal power, for example, up at the geysers. And you have really extensive protocols you can put in place to make sure that you're not running into any risk or even inconvenience to the public there. So the most advanced EGS system in the world is the U.S. Department of Energy's Utah Forge project. And thanks to really extensive, scientific work and very strict protocols, they've never caused an earthquake strong enough to be dangerous or even inconvenient. So we'll continue to learn from them. We'll continue to, demand the highest possible safety standards. We think that risk can really be mitigated. Just to go into a little more detail on some of these technologies. Again, I think on the right there, the closed loop is pretty intuitive, right? The water just circulates around through a pipe. The enhanced geothermal system, sort of artificially recreates the natural geothermal field by creating those fractures in what was once, solid rock. So again, as with advanced closed loop, you find that solid rock and you create kind of a way for water to move in a circle, through it back up to the surface and then back down again. This was really, EGS was again really made possible just in the last few years by learnings from the oil and gas fracking industry, which I think at Sonoma Clean Power, we're keenly aware of the environmental problems with that industry. But we're excited to use those learnings in a safer way to help actually produce clean energy and fight the climate crisis. I think, we all know stories of fracking for oil and gas polluting, groundwater, as well as surface waters. And, again, I mentioned that Utah Forge project. It's been really exciting to see that you can do EGS without creating those risks in the first place. So typically with EGS, you're sending the water down and bringing it back up in steel lined wells that are, totally sealed off so that there's no interaction with groundwater. And then the actual fractures in the rock are thousands and thousands of feet below any groundwater basins that might, come into contact with the surface. And because you're recirculating the same water over and over again, you really shouldn't have it coming into contact with the outside environment at all, even if it does, pick up something in the process, which is not the goal. I think one other big difference between EGS and fracking for oil and gas that I'll just highlight is, fracking for oil and gas causes the climate crisis, and we think EGS is a big solution to fighting the climate crisis by allowing us to have clean energy again around the clock there. So, and I should just mention with the 10% of our power today that comes from natural gas, we're relying on fracking to produce that, right? So the GeoZone will really allow us to wean off that, which we're really excited about. So from that foundation, here's what we've accomplished to date. We're very eager to kind of spread the word out in the community and get ahead of this before we get too far down the road. We are at the dawn of this effort. Ultimately, we expect this all to take, a decade or more from start to finish. And again, we're really at the start right now. Similarly, here's some of what we can expect. There'll be extensive opportunity for the public to weigh in at each of these environmental review processes, but we don't want to wait for that, right? We want to be out there engaging with people, fielding questions, comments, concerns, you name it. And I'll say more about that in a sec. Because ultimately this is a big opportunity for our region, but these are big projects, right? And we're all in it together. So we want to make sure that that we're responding to the community and easily accessible. Just in that vein, here's a quick little sample of what we've heard so far. Maybe we'll hear more tonight. I think there is a lot of interest in locking in affordable, reliable, clean energy, tempered with reasonable questions that'll help us guide the direction of our effort. So far, these have been especially focused on making sure that the local community really does see the benefits from the projects, which we agree with. I think overall we're going to bring a lot of value to Sonoma and Mendocino counties, and in the process help kind of incubate this next generation of geothermal power that could fight climate change around the world. So it's very exciting, and we need to get it done right. So I'll just conclude. I'm obviously happy to take any questions in a moment. We have a link to our GeoZone webpage up on the board here. That is sonomacleanpower.org/GeoZone. You can also email us at geozone@sonomacleanpower.org. And I'll just, I think in terms of our kind of request, what I would say is I think we're just very excited about this opportunity. And so if you can just sort of tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell whoever that these are going to be big, significant projects that will have a really big positive impact. I think we're really just trying to spread the word and help people get excited about this opportunity for Sonoma and Mendocino. So thanks so much for listening, and happy to take any questions.